Blades. Welcome back to the next sort of stage of making my next batch of blades. Now that scratching that you heard in the corner was me preparing the scales for bonding onto fibre liners. Now the fibre liners that I use are basically like an industrial gasket, and it provides a bonding from the wood or the micarta to the steel of the knife that's better than if you put the wood or the micarta solely onto the steel. It just provides a better seal. It looks attractive, and if you obviously consider the wood that you're using, I've got some flame spotted beech here. Obviously that goes quite well with a black liner. I had some wych elm a while back, and what jumped out at me was there's a few flecks of green, so I did black, green, black liners, and that's just for the colour that it goes, but it's also the industrial type bond that we're trying to get between the wood and the actual body of the knife. Now, when it comes to the components of a knife, it's not really what the cost of the parts are when it comes to the final cost of the actual finished article. For me, I call it the outcome, the final outcome. That's the knife, the finish of the knife, the edge geometry, the main actual bevel of the knife, and what's considered there. That's the spine, whether it's squared, whether it's rounded, the look of the wooden scales, the appearance of the micarta scales, the bond of everything together, how it flows, the ergo, whether the I did one for Sean Reed, and his hands, he's my height, his hands were massive compared with mine, so I'm trying to match effectively the ergo for a guy who's got bigger hands compared with someone who's quite happy to have a slim one. That's just the knife, and now I literally spent the last 6 months getting the sheaves up a level in order that it matches the amount of effort that goes into the knife in some way. So like you don't have a plain sheath with a really figured wooden handle. If you've got a plain oak scales and a plain sheet, it just, to me, that seems like it's married and it feels balanced. The actual cost of the leather itself, we're talking a fiver is the cost of the leather. The time and effort spent preparing it, cutting it, treating it, cutting it all out in the right areas so you don't end up with too much waste, so you don't ruin it, marking out all the holes. That's the time and the effort that eventually adds on the cost to the finished outcome. But even saying that, if you're only putting oak handles on a knife, if you had some superb oak flooring that someone would give you and it's dried and everything's ready, and you just put it in the oven, warmed it through, okay, it's pretty dry, sanded it up, bonded it on, you'll get quite a good result at the end of the day, because you've got the oak that's flat because it was flooring, you've got it was seasoned, it wasn't wet, you dried it in the oven so it's not damp, you've probably scored it all up, you've solvented it all off, you've scored up the metal of the blade, and you've epoxied it on with a decent quality epoxy, you'll end up with quite a good result. Okay, that's far better than getting a really expensive piece of wood, not sanding it, not wiping it down, not preparing the steel, using house repair type 199 epoxy, and just putting it on with a little bit of pressure. You need to put as much consideration and effort and diligence into preparing the actual components to be put together, to be, to end up with a result that's indicative of the amount of effort that's gone in. So when it comes to here, this stage, the amount of work I've already put into this, you know, I'm not going to do a half-assed job with the preparation, with the scoring it all down, wiping it off. So it's going to be done as good as I can in order to just pay homage to this wood that I've got hold of, that I've sawn up, that I've seasoned upstairs in the airing cupboard for, I think this wood shelf I've had for 15 months, 13 months, something like that. To then spend on and off a day in the oven, drying out, to purge it full of moisture, to put it in the tank, to put it in under the vacuum, to put in the cactus juice that I've got from America, £150 for that much, and then it cost me another 30 something quid when it comes through customs. So that's blooming expensive stuff to go into this. I've got time and effort invested in, and then another day, and then I got to cure it, and then I got to sand these all down, obviously because the resins. All the effort here has to reflect the amount of effort already been put into what is essentially just a piece of wood. Okay, so I am now going to be using some tissue paper or cloth and some acetone, and I'm going to take all the dust away on the wood. Now if you have a look at the fibre liner, you should see that I've scored the bejesus out of it. If you look on the other side, it's very similar to when they make MDF, because it's pressed into a sheet. It's like shined the surfaces up. Well, I don't want a shine. I want the glue to get in and bite. So I've tried to take all that closed surface off, scored it up, scuffed it up with literally 36 grit belt offcuts when they're worn through. I won't be using that anymore. You see, I've had it horizontal, so it's been there for a while, so it's no good for using on metal because you end up with uneven abrasive action on it. So that now for scuffing this stuff is great. Alright, so that's the amount of effort going in on that. That surface then bonds onto this one, and if you have a look on here, I've written in pencil front and to an arrow to say that that obviously goes on that side, and his mate front and an arrow. They go like that. So all that pretty is going to be on display. The most attractive appearance as I possibly can I leave to the outside, and what the not quite so great side in terms of appearance is on the inside. You might as well have the best possible visual appreciation of all the grain or whatever on the outside. Again, just to pay homage to the amount of effort that's already gone into prepping this piece of wood. You know that tree was 200 years old when it was cut down 5 years ago. I've had Iroko from school benches. You know, it was put in the school in 1956. 56. It could have been 300 years old. So it's 350 years old. Okay, don't shortcut yourself when it comes to the preparation, because you've got a goal for that handle to be on there for 50, 100 more years. You want that on there for the length of the lifetime of the tool. And you know, to short step 20 minutes now is a bad idea. You really need to consider scuffing it all up, and that's how, you know, with knife makers in general, just put so much input into their materials, their selection of even their seals, the oils, the thread they use, everything has to be, well, there's absolutely no point buying the cheapest thing. It just doesn't work. Okay, if you've got a little repair around the house, then a £1 super glue is the option. You go down to pound shop, you buy super glue, you glue it up, you hold it, and it's fixed. But when it comes to things here that, you know, could end up in the family for 2 generations past, it's the effort and the consideration that goes into it at this point that reflects in the final outcome afterwards. So at the moment I've scuffed all these down. I'm going to be using some solvent and cleaning them all up and let it evaporate, and then you want to use some decent industrial type epoxy. I'm using G-Flex or something that comes in the bag. Got it down here somewhere. There it is, West Systems, in the drawer, there it is. So I literally just started off, and this is for boats, and it's got a little bit of give in it, and this is the thing where you weigh out just equal weights or volumes of these, you mix them up and you apply it to you, and it'll only freshly prepared surfaces. That's what it's all about. But I've got all sorts of stuff in here. I mean, occasionally something of that quality is what you're after. This one doesn't glue glassy hard. It's still got a bit of a rubbery feel to it, so this can be useful occasionally, like I did Andy's badge on the back of his pommel. That's applicable for that because it's set in holes. Ferro rods, this is more than good enough to put a ferro rod, which is something with a finite life. But you don't want to go down the pound shop and get some like 151 for something that's you know, we're not talking a house repair, we're talking something that's could be, you're putting everything in because someone's handing over serious amounts of money for what we're doing. So it has, you know, it's up to then us, the Lees, the Dells, the Duncans, the Sandy Jacks, we're all putting into it, okay, to reflect obviously the investment that people are making in our products. So yeah, so it's 10:10 now, so I'll get these sewn it off, I'll bond them up, and see you on the next video. Thanks for joining me again.